All right, well, we're a couple minutes past 2, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Before we jump in, can I just get a couple people in the chat box to confirm that you can hear me okay? Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Glad to see that. My name is Callie Walker, and I'm on the marketing team at MemberClicks, the leading technology provider of membership management solutions for mission-based organizations. We always strive to provide relevant best practices for membership organizations, which is exactly what we're going to do today. As a reminder, if you're attending for CAE credit, we will be sending everyone a certificate of attendance following the presentation, so be on the lookout for that. We'll also be sending a recording of today's webinar to everyone as well. Now, I'd like to go over just a couple housekeeping items so you know how to best participate in today's event. If you're having trouble hearing on your computer's audio system, try dialing in by telephone. Simply select Join Audio on the left-hand side of your control panel and follow the dial-in instructions. You will be able to hear today's webinar, but your microphone will be muted. We'll have several hundred audience members joining us today, which is awesome, but that means we want to minimize background noise. But that doesn't mean that we don't want to hear from you. If you have any questions at all during the presentation, feel free to drop those in the Q&A box, and Scott will address those as we go. But we will also have time for Q&A at the end. We'll reserve about 10 to 15 minutes for Q&A. Last, if you're experiencing any technical difficulties, please let us know in the chat box, and someone from our team will help you sort through that. Okay, now for the part you've all been waiting for. We're thrilled to welcome our presenter for today's webinar, Scott Oser. Scott has over 20 years of marketing experience in the association and publishing industries. Before starting Scott Oser Associates, he worked for market leaders like National Geographic Society, AARP, and Science. Scott is highly skilled in creating effective membership, marketing, and sales programs with the ability to align resources and operations to consistently achieve and exceed goals. He has recently had a lot of success working with organizations to change their membership and marketing and sales strategies to communicate appropriately and maximize results. Everyone, please welcome Scott. And Scott, I will turn it over to you.
Thanks, Callie. I'm seeing in the chat a number of people who are saying that they can't hear me. Callie, can you just tell me, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, fantastic. If anybody can't hear, I guess just put in the chat again. As Callie mentioned, I'm not going to be monitoring the chat because as schizophrenic as I am, I can't really see and hear and talk at the same time. I know I try to, as many men do oftentimes, try to do a lot all at the same time, and we don't always succeed at all of them. So Callie and I have agreed, I'm gonna look at the Q&A and I'm gonna speak and she's gonna monitor the chat for me. So we're going to go there. So anyways, thanks everybody for joining us today. We have a lot of people on this call, which to me says that this is a very important topic. And I agree that member onboarding is a very important topic, and it is something that every association needs to be aware of and needs to be on top of. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by asking you all to please enter into the chat box, just so we do a little bit of get to know each other. I know that this is not like doing things live, and it's not going to be as perfect as it would be if we were all face to face, but just so there's a little bit of introduction so people know who's on this session. Put in your name, your organization, and whether you're from an individual membership organization, trade association, a chamber of commerce, or you are in some other situation. So if you could do that, I'll give you about 30 seconds to do that. I'm not going to stop the presentation too much because I want to focus on content, and I know it might take you a minute to do that. So let's pause for about 15 seconds and go from there. And so thank you all very much for doing that. All right, I'm not watching chat, so I'm going to make the assumption that a lot of people have gone in and put that in the chat, so thank you very much. I appreciate it. All right. So What I wanted to start out with is a statistic from, or actually a finding from Marketing General. And if you don't know Marketing General and their membership marketing benchmarking report, as membership professionals or as someone who has anything to do with membership, you should be aware of this report. They've been doing it now, I don't know how many years, let's say 6, 8 years. And it's a fantastic resource for associations. There's a lot of research out there, but this is one that's been going on for a long time. And one of the things I started looking at a number of years ago was member engagement. And it was found out that in the 2018 survey that 30% of associations say lack of member engagement is the reason why members do not renew. And you may be saying to yourself, all right, Scott, that's great, but we're not here to talk about member engagement. We're here to talk about member onboarding. We're here to talk about how we're welcoming and our members back to the association or back to the association. Well, the reason I bring that up is one important way or one smart way to create member engagement from the beginning of a membership is by doing a member onboarding program. So if you look at the new member engagement study, which was done by Kaiser Insights, Amanda Kaiser, and Dynamic Benchmarking, and they're actually now, I don't know if Amanda is still fielding responses or still looking for responses for this year, but she was. They're just doing number 2. But what she said was that on average, new member retention increases 10% when a new member onboarding plan is implemented. And what does that say? It says to me that member engagement, which I just flipped back to, is it's correlated to your member onboarding plan. So if you have a member onboarding plan, you're going to increase engagement, which will lead to increased member retention. So what does that say to me? It says we need member onboarding plans. We definitely need to have them. And I say from the overwhelming response and the number of registrations that we received for this webinar today, you guys agree. And so what I'm going to do is go through some pretty basic tips on what you need to think about and what you need to use when you're creating your member onboarding plan. And then at the end, what we're going to do is I'm going to give you a worksheet. It's a pretty light worksheet that you can use to make improvements or to just reevaluate what your member onboarding plan is, or still or if you have one already, to revise it, right? And so there's just a real quick question in here. Marianne asked me, what is the purpose of this presentation? And so the purpose of this presentation is to talk about the value of member onboarding. It's not, I know that at the end, Aaron from MemberClicks is going to talk a little bit about what MemberClicks does, but for the next hour-ish, I'm not talking about MemberClicks at all. This is me letting you guys know what I have learned about the value and some tips and tricks to use on your member onboarding plan. And for Joyce, who asked, can you cite the agency still looking for input on member engagement? It's Kaiser Insights, Kaiser Insights, and Dynamic Benchmarking. If you search for Amanda Kaiser, either through LinkedIn or if you're a member of ASAE through Collaborate, Amanda's on there all the time. And so you can find it there. I don't know if they're still looking for information. I know they were. And let me just say real quick, this question keeps coming up in the chat and the Q&A. Will a recording of the presentation be shared later? Yes, we were happy to do that. Also, if you want copies of the slides, you can either let MemberClicks know or let me know, and I'm happy to share the slides with you. So Q&A box is now empty, and so I'm going to keep on going. So we agree, or at least I believe, and the data backs up, that a member onboarding plan is very important. So what we're going to do is talk about tips and tricks for member onboarding. I want to thank anybody who sent me some samples, because when Callie sent out the information, when MemberClick sent out the information, they did ask to submit some samples, and I appreciate it. I will apologize in advance. I'm not going to get to everybody's samples. And when I go through the samples, what I'm going to do is there's going to be some good and bad. So I hope nobody takes any offense if they submitted their samples and I have some critique, because I think it's going to be valuable. So let's just jump right in, get to the meat. Again, please carry on your conversation in the chat room. And if you have any questions that I can answer, as I have been, I will try my best to monitor the Q&A. So, all right, here goes. Member onboarding, tip number 1, set clear and measurable goals. Based on the statistics I've shown you and many of your own experiences, it is pretty much a proven fact that member onboarding is important. But just saying that you want to have a member onboarding program or you need to have a member onboarding program is in many ways not enough. Before you create your member onboarding program, or if you already have one, before you revise your member onboarding program, you need to understand why you are doing it. You need to understand what you are trying to track, what your objectives are. Because just to do it is nice. And I would say, hey, you know what? If you're not doing anything, do something. And I'm going to tell you guys that at the end. What is my biggest tip for member onboarding? If you're not doing something already to onboard your members, just do it. Whatever that looks like, just do it, because something is going to be better than nothing. And it is going to create a level of engagement. It may not be perfect, but it will be more than you had before, because your members want to hear from you and they want to be engaged, and therefore onboarding is going to be important. But as you dive into it more, or as you're trying to focus and make it as effective as possible, you need to figure out what your goals are. And a few examples for your types of goals for member onboarding are, number one, depending on how you want to track it and what your technology allows you to do, it could be engagement. And you need to define that on your own. You need to say, all right, is a click on an email or email open rates, is that a measure of engagement? Is participating on a committee a measure of engagement? Is, I'm trying to think, going to when we could go to our annual conference, is that a measure of engagement? So really your goals are, it's dependent on your organization. It matters. You have to define that in some ways for your own sense, for your own organization, your own industry. But really what you want to do is say, okay, by communicating with my members, I want to make sure, I want to increase the number of times they interact with me. I want to, if it is a revenue-based goal, I want to know the number of times that they register for events. I want to increase participation on committees and councils. Ultimately, what we want to do is, with our member onboarding, is we want to, and this takes time, so that's why I say ultimately, what we want to do is get more people to renew. Member onboarding leads to engagement, which leads to renewal. All right, so ultimately we want to get a higher number of renewals, and that's really what our goal is. But there are lots of steps along the way that you can define based on what your organizational goals are. Your onboarding is a piece of that. All right. Don't delay, start right away. And I have just a real quick example here of what I'm talking about. And this was from what somebody sent to me. And this is what they send immediately after somebody joined. And you'll see that as I'm showing you samples, they're pretty simple, right? I tried my best to get examples that would fit perfectly with the suggestions. So, you know, they're not real complex, let's put it that way. But, you know, so don't delay, start right away. The minute somebody joins, because we live in a technology heavy world, they want to know that you've received their membership. They want to know that they have, in certain situations, been approved for membership. But just make sure that you know that they got it. And so, or that you got it, sorry, and that payment has been accepted, so that there's no question. You know, we all, you do, and I'm going to mention this a number of times, organizations like Amazon, we buy something, within 2 seconds, you get an email that says, all right, this is what you bought. You need to do, our messages, I think, need to be a little bit more personal. But if the minimum you can do, if the lowest amount you can do is just send them a receipt that they got it, you need to do something, because you don't want them to think that you haven't received it. So here's the example. You know, thank you for your membership application. I confirm I have sent you a receipted invoice for your subscription in a separate email. This is a European organization, so they sort of classified their membership as a subscription. So don't let that be confusing to anybody that is not European. This is actually a membership onboarding piece that goes out right after the membership is received. All right, mix it up and use multimedia. This is another critical tip all the time, and especially now. We live in a world where we are getting blasted with marketing messages all day, every day. I can't even remember, because it keeps going up and up, the number of marketing messages that we get on a daily basis. And so what does that mean to me? And from my experience, what that means is that one method is not going to get your message across. Unless you're in a unique situation, direct mail is not the only thing you can do. Email is not the only thing you can do. And so here's just a few examples of the different methods that you can use to communicate with your members. And I think you need to try them. You need to focus on what is going to be most effective for you and your unique situation, but you need to try different things because you're not going to easily get anybody's attention. I know right now that with people being at home for the large part and not going into offices, that there are a lot of associations that are going even more so than they used to email. People are on their computers. Well, yes, people are on their computers because they can't really do anything else. And I would argue with you and say that, hey, you know what? Even when we're in offices, people are on their computers all the time anyways. It's just we may be on it more now. But if you look out in the universe, we're getting emails and more emails and more emails from everybody we do business with and from personal contacts. So the number of emails is up. Direct mail, I think, is still very valuable if it's within your industry. And what's going on with COVID-19 and people being out of the office is bringing up some really interesting data questions for associations. Direct mail, it's more difficult potentially to get in front of your new members, to welcome them or have onboarding communication if all you have is a business address and they're not going to the office, right? Same thing for phone. If you only have their work phone and they haven't rolled it over to their cell phone, what do? So I think this points out not just that you need to mix it up and use multiple methods to get in front of people so you do get their attention, but you also potentially need to have a backup on your data so that you can reach them if we're ever in this situation again, or to use email or to use direct mail and almost email and phone as an example. What if they leave their organization and they're an individual membership? Do you have the backup data to reach them somewhere else? Or do you want to have the backup data? Can your membership database hold that backup data, and how do you use it? So it's a lot more than just mix it up and use multimedia, but I think it all goes down to you need to try different things. During your plan and during your communication planning and your calendar, you need to try different things or you're going to miss a lot of people. I sort of say there is not one trick pony anymore. There's not one method that's going to reach everybody all the time. So you need to mix it up. All right, personalize the communications. I'm going to talk about segmenting and targeting next, but I want to say the way I define personalizing is pretty basic. Personalizing means personal information. Make sure that you use their name. Make sure that you use their title. Make sure that as much as you can, you put their organization in there if it's appropriate. Make sure you put their title in there if it's appropriate. All of that information helps make them feel that much more welcome and make them feel that much more like they are a part of your organization and that they matter to you as individuals, not just as numbers and not just as you getting access to their checkbook and their dollars. And again, Amazon, Under Armour, Nike, pick whoever you want, anybody who has a strong online presence, they're personalizing everything. And so we have to, or else we seem way behind the times. And we also don't seem like we're doing what we need and addressing people as people, which has always been important, but it's even more important now because our competitors for mind space and for communication are doing it. So here's just a couple of examples on the chat box. All right, so this came from the British Columbia Hotel Association. And I'm keeping some of these samples very simple. Dear Samantha, right? They could have said, dear member. They could have said, dear Samantha Brown, which I have seen, and Callie and I were just talking about before this. It always blows my mind when I see, dear Scott Oser. It's like, really? You couldn't, depending on what your culture is and your communication style is, it could say, dear Mr. Oser, But dear Scott Oser, it automatically says to me, this is not a personal communication, which is what, by personalizing it all, by having a salutation like that, we want it to feel personal. So here's an example. I know that I talk Amazon a lot, and I think that Amazon, because they've got $1 bazillion and the top technology people in the world working for them, always do the right things, right? Well, I found this on the internet right before I got on this webinar. So check this out. Hello, Amazon customer. What? No, you guys shouldn't be sending out dear member or dear new member if you know their contact information. Just like Amazon, the king of the world, should not have been sending out dear Amazon customer. So I wanted to let you know that, this was actually from the article I read. This was a mistake. This was not supposed to happen. It did. It was not supposed to happen. But two things. One, we need to make sure that we actually personalize our messages. And then two, mistakes are going to happen. So if Amazon's making mistakes and they've got $1 bazillion behind them, then we're also going to make mistakes. So I'm sure that most of you at some point of time has sent out a message that says, hello, first name. Well, oops, I know I've done it. It happens. So you just move on, or you send an apology, whatever it might be. But we need to stress that we want to personalize, and we need to personalize as much as possible so we connect with the people that we're sending it to. All right, target and segment. This to me is different than personalization in a few key ways. And what I mean by target and segment, it's not personal information. It's more what they do, who they are, what role they play, what their interests are, their position within the industry, those types of things. So, for example, we all have, I shouldn't say we all, most associations and chambers have what I will call, for lack of a better definition and for a sense of being just more generic, we have regular members. Those are our core members, and that is our primary mission and goal is to serve them. We also have industry partners, suppliers, corporate members, whatever you want to call them. Sometimes we have different types of regular members. So there may be student members, there may be your non-student members. All of these groups have slightly different needs. We need to segment them because they don't all want the same messages. They won't all benefit from the same products and services that we're using. So we need to, what I call, bucketize them. We don't need to have 1,000 buckets. We could. I mean, you could have first year, you could have young students, you could have PhDs, you could have early career regular members, you could have more seasoned career regular members, you could have large industry partners, you could have small industry partners, and they may all have slightly different needs. But we can't always, and from what I've seen, we don't always have the data, and we don't always have the need to divide and conquer that much, but we do need to divide and conquer. We can no longer send out and be effective messages that list everything that we do and make it the same for everyone that we send it to and ask them to sort through what might be for them. So let's just say, and I'm not going to recommend you do this, but let's just say that you send out a brochure that has 10 benefits on it. Well, if you send it out to a regular member and only 5 of them are appropriate for them or applicable to them, and then the other 5 are not, well, you're asking them to do the work. You're not showing them that you understand who they are. You're not showing them that you understand their place in the industry. You're also making them do work, which you don't want to do. You want to make it as easy on them as possible. And again, what this goes back to, I know it may sound silly to say this, but it's engagement. And part of engagement and part of your reason for doing member onboarding is that you want to make them feel like you understand them, and that will automatically provide a level of engagement. You want to make it easy for them, and that will help them more easily engage with you, which will then again, hopefully lead to higher retention and higher renewals. So Joyce asked a question in the Q&A that went back to personalization. Our memberships are by firm, so we have multiple names. How do you feel about saying welcome team? I think that's okay. I don't want to go into a ton of detail about this, but I would also say that your welcome could be for a team, but if it's a mailed piece, because a mailed piece is going to go to one person, right? It still needs to be addressed to somebody, I guess. But if you're sending it to an email, it's going to go to one individual most likely. So what I would then recommend, if you have multiple names and you know who those people are, send it to all of them. Don't just send it to one contact. If you only have one contact, then do it. And maybe what you do in the message is say, please share this with your team. Or if you really want to get engagement, if you're sort of in a trade association situation, which Joyce obviously is, and she has multiple contacts, or there is the potential to have multiple contacts, bring that information into your AMS, because you're then serving all of those people as members. The organization is your member, but you're serving all of them. So you need to communicate, and you in essence need to onboard all of them, not just the firm. You need to onboard everybody. So exactly how you do that sort of depends on the data that you have. But I do think engagement needs to be at all levels, because I have seen many times where somebody says, hey, my main contact left. I don't have anybody else at the firm or at the organization, and they're paying me $10,000 a year. What do I do now? Well, you need to prove value to other people besides just that main contact. In many situations, not in all, because I know we're not all exactly the same, but in many situations, you need to do that, right? So somebody asked, what is a basic salutation appropriate for an international academic association? I'm beginning to wonder about my greetings, first name, last name. As I already stated, I agree. Don't do first name, last name, because it sounds off. If it's academics, you may want to go, and this becomes a little bit more complicated on your data because you need to know what they are, is maybe it's dear Dr., Mr., Mrs., Miss, whatever you might be, and then last name. I know some academics can be a little bit more prickly than other people, so you may not want to say dear Bob or dear Joe or dear Jill or dear whoever it might be, because that does not resonate with them. But I would say whatever you do, as long as it's not offensive to their perceived as offensive by them, it will be better than greetings, first name, last name. I think greetings is fine. But the first name, last name shows to me, and I would guess to most of us, that it is a form letter. It's not something, because you don't address somebody that you're writing to personally. And what we're trying to do is we're not actually doing it, but we're doing our best to create one-to-one connection and make it seem like they are the only one that is receiving this, that it's a personal communication. And greetings, first name, last name, automatically to me says, no, this is something that somebody slipped in. We all kind of know that that's what's going on anyways, but they basically merged it. So, that I would recommend not doing greeting, first name, last name, but doing whatever is the most prevalent within your industry. And if it's dear doctor or dear, because PhDs are going to be doctors, or if it's dear Mr., dear Miss, whatever it might be, then go with that. But there usually is a sort of a common way of communicating within an industry. And if not, go with dear first name and see what's going on. The other thing to consider is, what is your communication style with your members? Because like for-profits, if you have a mellow, relaxed, casual type of communication with your members, and that's what the environment is you're trying to create, then do dear Fred or dear Jill or dear whoever, because that's, you could even, depending on your organization, you can do, hey, Jill, hey, John, you can do that, but it just depends on what kind of communication you're trying to do. And then also you got to be aware of what's going to be acceptable to your recipient. So you got to do that. Okay. About personalization, Megan asked, is it ever appropriate to send an email with several members on blind copy if you are sending the same email to multiple people? My suggestion is no, I would not. If it's from one organization, as Joyce was mentioning earlier, if you have multiple members, send it to all of them. Don't blind copy them. And I don't know why anybody would want to do that and do something like this in this sense, but you can actually see if somebody's blind copied on your messages. There's a way to do that through your email servers. You can click on the email and see, oh, wait, they blind copied. It wouldn't say how many people, but there's a way to do that. Again, I don't know why you would want to, but if somebody really did, they would kind of figure that out. So depending on your purpose, I would say don't do that. There are so many, if what you're trying to do is send it to a lot of people at different organizations and not have other recipients see that it's sent to a lot of other people, number one, you're not going to be able to personalize it because once you blind copy, the same salutation, the same message goes to everybody. So you can't do that. But then there's plenty of services out there, including Outlook, where you can merge and do it individually and have it sent individually. I actually have done that recently myself for some work I was doing with the ASAE Foundation. And it's not hard. I know it's harder depending on the size of your list. I would love to hear that you guys are saying you're getting 2,000 to 3,000 new members at a time, and that's who you want to communicate with. But most of the time, it's relatively manageable. So you can do that. Okay, use your data to your advantage, and this can be defined in a number of different ways. And I know we are all at the mercy of our databases. So whether it be an AMS or a CMS or a sales type thing, we're all at the mercy of that, but we need to use our data to our advantage as much as possible, because what that will allow us to do is segment and target and personalize and recommend and do all of those things doing our member onboarding. And that we need to, one of the reasons we do our member onboarding is to lead people down a path, right? We want to lead our new members down a path. And without having data, we can't do that. It's very difficult to do that. So we need to make sure that we do that. Sorry if I'm flipping around a little bit. I'm flipping between Q&A. A little nuance of Zoom that I didn't realize when I'm sharing my screen is I have to click on the Q&A to scroll through the Q&A, and I have to click back to my presentation to scroll through my presentation. And unfortunately, you guys, I apologize. I am hitting the wrong one sometimes, and you'll see slides flipping and things like that. So I apologize for the spinning that's going on. I will try my best not to do that. But so you need to use your data as much as you can. I will always say, do not collect data just to collect data, but the more data you can collect that you're going to use, then get it. There was a question on Collaborate this morning that I saw in my digest, ASAE Collaborate this morning, that said, you know, what type of data should I ask for? How much information should I ask for on when someone joins for the first time? My opinion is, and my experience has always been, less is always more. The more people you can get to join and make it simple and easy for them to join, the better off you're going to be, and then you can get that information later. And by what I'm saying by get that information later, what I mean is get appropriate information. Not appropriate as in legal, you know, what can you collect legally, but appropriate as in what are you going to use it for. You need to be smart and strategic about collecting your data, because if you're not going to use it and you're asking your members or your prospects or your registrants or whoever it might be for 1 million pieces of information, they're going to put it down. They're not going to do it. I know that in many ways we all have more time on our hands right now, but we're just not going to do it. We're going to go to things that are easier. You know, we all have access to lots of different things that can fill our time. So unless we really, really, really want to provide information to somebody, we're not going to do it. It's going to be too long, and we're going to put it to the side, and we're never going to get to it. Felicia asked, how do you get segmentable information such as stage of career? I think I just mentioned that a little bit, sort of backwards or sideways. You're going to either need to, depending on your field, you may be able to get that from some certifying boards and things like that, but that's more for students and postdocs and things like that. You're going to have to ask. You're going to have to, at some point in your communication stream with them when they are a member, not necessarily during your onboarding, but maybe during your onboarding, you're going to have to ask. And maybe if you have an online community, or if they have their own membership record that they can access, that's one of the things that you can ask them to select exactly where they are in their career, what their career level is, what their title is. You may be able to make some assumptions, which is obviously not going to be 100% accurate, because you're making assumptions, but if somebody is a senior director of something, you can assume they're further along in their career than somebody who is a marketing associate or a marketing administrator, think something like that. So that requires a little bit of programming and some guesstimation, but that's a way to do it. So that sort of answers that question. Sorry guys, I'm trying to scroll through the Q&A a little bit as we're talking. All right, next tip, frequency counts. Be consistent, but don't be overwhelming. We need to, as I was mentioning earlier, we are all bombarded with marketing messages. And so we cannot just assume that a welcome letter or a welcome email or a welcome phone call means that we're done. We need to stay in touch with them. We need to consistently communicate with them. I have worked with a couple of clients on what I call a 365-day member communication plan. Nobody wants to hear, I shouldn't say that. Almost no one wants to hear from their association 365 days a year. I think that daily communication has become a lot more prevalent because of COVID-19 and the benefits and services and information that associations are providing to their industries and to their members. But on a more typical basis, you don't want to hear from your association 365 days a year, but you want your members to feel like they're hearing from you regularly, that you're thinking about them regularly, that you're considering them regularly. And so frequency is going to count. You can't be one and done. You probably can't be two and done. You can't just send out a welcome message and then along with the standard e-newsletter, the magazine, the marketing promotions that you send, the next thing that they get from you is it's a time to renew letter, right? It's a time to renew notice. It's a renewal notice. That feels horrible for many of your members. Not all. There are going to be some people who are like, all right, that's cool. I'm getting enough benefit out of that. But you need to develop a consistent, regular communication plan. But it can't kill them. I'm sure we've all seen conversations about how often do I send my e-newsletter? How often do I communicate with people? You need to figure that out in a little bit on your own based on the tolerance of your audience, but it needs to be consistent. It needs to be more than just one and done or two and done and then renewal. It's just that's not going to be effective on your onboarding. You need to get in front of them and keep bringing them in and keep welcoming them in to your community, to your association. Somebody asked, how often should I send direct mail? I think it depends on your budget. It depends on your internal capabilities, and it depends on your industry. I would say that, as I was saying before, mix it up. Do it every couple of 3 months, but they need to have different purposes, right? You could say direct mail, but what does direct mail mean? Does it mean that when they join, they get a welcome letter and then 2 months later they get a check-in letter or from somebody on the board or from the executive director, or what it goes back to your goals and objectives. What is your purpose in these communications? So a few examples that I have seen are where associations immediately, or most typically, and I know that this is painting with a sort of a broad brush, but typically the initial communications you're getting nowadays are email, right? You're getting email, but it is very nice to get something in the mail soon. Is it a postcard? Is it a personalized letter? I would say a personalized letter is going to have a lot more impact than a postcard but it depends, right? You want to get them to feel like you are communicating with them, that they are important to you. So could a postcard do that? Sure. If you used a handwritten font and it looks all cute and cool and whatever, then sure, that could work. So I think from an onboarding perspective, there is no perfect answer to how much direct mail should happen. It really depends on your audience and how the most effective way for you to reach them. All right. So how do you recommend onboarding companies with lots of employees wanting to be involved? Do you get all of their email addresses when you sign them up? I know this is sort of my common answer. It seems like it's my common answer. It depends on your organization. If you have one point of contact and they are really signing everybody up, then ask them to provide all of that information. Ask them to be your help. Ask them to help you get all that information. I've seen lots of trade associations where they have one contact and that person basically manages the membership on the other side. Is that kind of a pain? Of course, because you're reliant on that person. You're bugging that person to say, hey, you know what? It's time for renewal again, or it's time for your account update, your profile update. Can you tell me if all these people are still there? Can you tell me if they've left? And then the other thing is, what if they leave, right? What if your main contact leaves? Unless you've been in contact with the organization and know they're going to leave, then what do you do? You know, that's a whole another question that I've seen happen many times, where you reach out for renewal, or 3 months after renewal is due, and somebody finally picks up the phone and says, hey, can I talk to Jane? And they go, Jane left 6 months ago. Oh, that's why my renewal notice has not been getting paid. Well, yeah, you need to stay on top of that and create some form of relationship and have regular communication. Rachel asked, can social media updates count as a form of consistent communication? Of course. I think it is more blast, but it is part of your messaging. Would I consider it one-to-one messaging? No, I would definitely consider it more mass messaging. But if that is part of your communication and you know that your members are paying attention to it, then go for it. All right, I'm going to take a step away from the Q&A. You guys are asking awesome questions. I'm trying to get to them all, but I also want to try and get to the slides. So next, put down the fire hose. I'm going to go through this real quickly by showing you an example. What do I mean by this is, don't open that fire hose the minute people join, right? You need to be select about what you want to communicate them initially, because otherwise they're going to drown. So here's an example. I apologize to the person who sent this to me. I'm not going to ask you guys to read this, but first thing, my reaction was, okay, this is their welcome letter. Wow, it's a lot of paragraphs, right? So it's not easy to read, but then if you were to read this, here's what they're asking you to do, all within your welcome letter. Look at the enclosed membership information. And attached to this, I can't remember if it was attached or it was linked to the PDF, there was a 20-page brochure that was attached to it. So they also asked you to read that. So you're getting this message. There's a 20-page brochure. Look at the enclosed membership information. So that's ask number 1. Complete and return the enclosed. There was something that you were signing up for. So they're asking you to complete and return something. So that's ask number 2. Number 3, become involved. So again, the association is asking you to do something else. Number 4, tell your colleagues about the association because they're going to get value from it. So ask number 4. Number 5, share ideas for how we can make membership more meaningful. They ask you to do 5 things and attach a 20-page brochure all in the welcome letter. It's too much. There's nothing wrong with any of these things that you're being asked to do, but in your welcome letter, in your initial start at the start of your onboarding program, it's too much. Nobody can do all this stuff. Nobody's going to want to do that stuff. It's too much. So make sure that as you're communicating, especially at the beginning, you're not drowning them with the fire hose. I mean, I sort of relate this to what a lot of associations used to do, which I call the hernia package, taking everything that the association offers, putting it in a box or in a folder or in something and mailing it out and expecting you as a member to do something with it. What are you going to do with it? You're most likely going to put it on a shelf and never come back to it. Well, something like this, you kind of get the gist, but it's too much. It's too much. So you need to put down the fire hose and figure out at the beginning, or actually through your entire onboarding plan, what is most important for them to do and for them to know at that time. You need to prioritize what will benefit the member. And then also what you need to know is what is going to benefit the association. So if gathering some data is going to help you, then gather a little bit of data. But really what your focus needs to be on what's going to benefit the membership. Okay, determine your resources needed. Obviously, we don't all have unlimited resources. We don't get to do everything that we want all the time. So as we're putting together our plans, one of the things that we always need to bounce it against is, what do we need to be able to do it? What sort of staffing resources do we need? What money do we need? And from a technology standpoint, what do we need to be able to do, or what resources do we need to be able to have. I am going to go into sort of, I apologize, I don't know exactly what slide number it is. I mentioned automation, right? Automation is great. If you don't have the technology to automate, you can't automate. If you need to collect data and use your data, but you don't have a great database, you can't do that either. So you need to always keep that in mind. You need to start sort of pie in the sky with your onboarding plan, but before you present it to anybody, before you really put a pen, a permanent marker to paper, or nail down these things, you need to balance it against what resources you have available. Discover their why and use it. This right now, this is always true, but this right now is even more important. We need to understand what members want, and we need to understand why they are part of the association. It's not just about us talking about the association. It's not just about us talking about all of the great stuff we do. It's us talking about all the great stuff we do, but also talking about how we are meeting their needs. We're looking at it from their perspective, not the association perspective. And I think many associations have done a very good job with shifting very quickly when it came to COVID-19 and the recent racial issues. They've done that a very good job of that, but it doesn't happen all the time. I actually got a couple of examples that I said to them, okay, thank you very much for sending this to me. I appreciate it. Did this change at all when COVID-19 happened? Because this was a number of weeks ago. And I was surprised that a number of people said, no, we really didn't change it, or we changed it a tiny bit. To me, that was a missed opportunity. I don't believe that things needed to change completely, but they needed to change some based on the why of the members. What did the members need? Why were they looking to you? Why should they come to you? Not just about you, but about them. Here's an example, and this is, again, a simple example, but thank you so much for becoming a member of ICTA, your industry watchdog. Your membership reflects your commitment to investing in the future of your livelihood. I know that's kind of generic, but it gives you an example of that's their why. I assume that the members joined, and that's why they presented this the way they did, was because the members joined because they wanted to protect their future. They wanted to protect their future employment or their future livelihood, right? So that's why they joined. That is a why. It's not every why, but that's a why. Some other comments that I had, mention of why in the first paragraph, which is great because it shows right away your understanding. Good use of segmentation by member type. This goes back to what I was saying about segmentation before. Presentation of features, not benefits. I'm not going to read these to you guys, but they did a very good. One of the negatives here is this is all features. This is what the association offers. It doesn't explain how, as a member, you would benefit from this. So that's marketing 101, messaging 101. And this is sort of secondary, but we look forward to seeing you at our next meeting. This whole thing is not about meetings. So, and the next meeting, from what I gathered here, is not even mentioned in here. So it just seems sort of confusing as to where does this fit with the rest of the letter. And so it just you need to focus on almost every word matters, I guess is what I'm saying. Almost every word in your onboarding communications matters. Okay. They want to know what they should pay attention to and why, and we need to answer them. So here's an example. I want to just point out real quick, the good use of personalization here, dear doctor, right? It's near, not Dr. Jane Doe, it's dear doctor. Okay, so you get that information there. But what they have done a good job of is, first of all, saying your completed application form has been received. We're pleased to welcome you as a member. So they're doing a good job of being nice and being friendly, and they want you to know that your application has been received. They also, it's short and to the point. This was the entire letter, right? It was not a lot of information. They put down the fire hose. They dripped a little bit of information, which was great. They let the recipient know in here that you'll be receiving pertinent information throughout the year. I don't think there's any perfect communication strategy when it comes to onboarding. I can't tell you that there's a schedule that will work for everybody, but it does need to continue throughout the year. As I was saying before, it's not one and done. It's not two and done. What works for you depends on what your results are, what your resources are. and you need to create your own. But I think that's very good to know that they have let their member know at the beginning that they're going to be getting more information. So pay attention, keep looking for it. That's great. And one of the sort of the critiques that I had is that this is a lot about events, right? It's focused on this one event and other events, but unless that is the primary benefit of the association, I would say that you need to maybe include something else, right? Maybe it's a different type of message and a different benefit, because it is possible that somebody may not be able to come to the event or either of the events. So it sort of takes them out of the engagement process, right? It's like, all right, well, I'm not coming to these events, then what do I do now? How else do I get engaged? And then finally, for an ease of use, because we do want to make this as easy to use as possible and make them as user-friendly as possible, there's no link in here unless it just didn't come through in the email. And if it didn't, I apologize, but it didn't come through in the email. There's no link to get more information on any of these. And for ease of use and for customer service and user service, you'd want to have a link in there so it's easy for them to access it. But sort of back to my tip, what should they do? And now, what should they pay attention to? This is great because this is short and easy to read, and it really asks them to do one thing, not a lot of things, and it sort of walks them through that process and lets them know that they're going to be getting more information. So I wanted to point that out. Find the right voices and speak their language. This is a couple of different things. One, who does the communication come from? Does it come from a board member? Does it come from a local chapter? Does it come from your executive director? Does it come from a staff member? All of that is important to think about when you're sending out your communications, because it could have different meaning to the member. It could have different impact on resources. There's lots of things to do. I personally believe as much as I can when I'm working with clients and giving advice to people, mix it up. Use the executive director, use the chairman of the board, use somebody that's in the membership department, because your association members may need to change their address at some point, or may have problems getting into your online portal or whatever it is. And you don't want that going to the executive director. You want that going to the right person. Connect them with their local chapter if you have chapters, because that can provide a more local connection for them. Spread it out so that they meet numerous people, but don't ever forget that sometimes there is something to be said about getting the top person or the top people to communicate, right? Getting the executive director and getting the president of the board to communicate with them makes people feel important. So that's a good move. And then secondly, find the right voices and speak their language. No insider speak. Within an association, as staff people, we often come up with our own acronyms. We come up with our own language. We come up with our own terms. This, as I was saying before, their why, not ours. This is not about us. We need to make sure that it is very clear to our members, especially when they first join, that we understand who they are and not ask them to start understanding exactly the way we speak. So we need to keep both of those things in mind as we're writing copy and creating our communications. Learn from past efforts, really quick and easy one here. I know we're getting close to time, I'm sorry. Learn from past efforts. Make sure that there's a way that you can track. Set those goals up, set your KPIs and track to them so that you can see if things are working or not. If you don't track, you're never going to learn. You're never going to make things better. So you're never going to improve. So that's critical that you try your best to track and learn from your past efforts. Automate. I have a feeling that some of you right now are feeling quite a bit overwhelmed because I've mentioned a lot of things that you should think about, a lot of things that you can do. Fortunately, there is technology out there. I know we don't all have access to it right now, but there is technology out there that will allow you to automate. So you sort of set it and leave it and let it go. I do believe that we need to review it from time to time. We can't just let it go forever. There are situations that I've heard of where communications have been going out. They had already said COVID-19 hit, Black Lives Matter happened, and their communications didn't get changed fast enough, so it became insensitive to one or the other, and it gets you in hot water. So you really need to, once you automate, which can be very helpful, you need to review it, you need to test, you need to try new things. But to save yourself time, you can definitely automate, so consider doing that. Use what you already do. Communications don't have to be brand spanking new. You don't have to create all new communication. You can put ads in your magazine about different benefits that they have. You can include mentions and highlight benefits and services in your e-newsletters. You can have your chapters and committees connect with your members and new members. All of this stuff is very, very important. And the goal is to save you time and energy and to make it so that you don't have to recreate the wheel. Oftentimes as marketers and as membership marketers, we look to do something new. All right, I have a new objective. I need to do something new. Well, you don't always have to do something new. You've got some internal resources and some internal activities, so take advantage of them. Create membership ambassadors. This can be true now. It's even more so true or more true when we're able to meet face-to-face, but get some of your members that love you and have seen value from you to help with your onboarding process. Even if that's as simple as providing testimonials that you can say to people, hey, this is how people like you have benefited. So create membership ambassadors as much as you can. Go digital. This is sort of my new tip and my new focus a little bit. Go digital, hit them where they are, and then follow them around. Through digital marketing now, we have a lot of power, and it's not real expensive. As people join, we can create retargeting campaigns. We can talk geofencing and geo-targeting campaigns. We can place ads in front of them that just drip benefits on top of them from us, that drip services on them, that drip messaging on them. And this is something that not a lot of associations are doing. And it's very unintrusive, if that's even a word. It's not in your face all the time, but it's branding and it's communication without hitting people over the head, which I think is very, very valuable. And as I mentioned, right now, it's not real expensive. So I realize, you guys, I apologize. I'm neglecting the Q&A. There's some long questions in here that I'm struggling to get to and read while I'm talking. Conversations are very, very important. In most associations, you want them to participate. You want them to give as much as they get. Oftentimes, members are looking to participate in the communication, so invite them into your community. Tell them their opinions are welcome. If you have an online community, start conversations. Point out to them where they can get involved and do those kind of things. It's very important to engage them during your member onboarding process. I know I'm getting to the end. Don't just welcome back. When most people hear about member onboarding, they think new member onboarding. Member onboarding to me is for new members and current/renewing members. They may not need the same messaging. They actually probably need different messaging, but it is very important to welcome people back as well. Just because they've joined before doesn't mean they're always going to join. Just because they've been engaged before doesn't mean they're always going to be engaged. So you need to make sure that you're not just welcoming for the first time, but you're also welcoming back. All right, this is a takeaway. What does your current onboarding program look like? It's just so you can sort of rethink based on what I've shared with you and sort of the advice that I've provided. What are your key targets? What are your primary efforts? What's your timing and what your key messages are? So, I feel like if you have not looked at your onboarding plan in a while, this will help sort of give you a structure to check it out. And then enter in a chat, or if you want to write down on your own so you can work on it, what are 2 things that you're going to review or revise based on what we've talked about today and what you've thought about while we were talking today? I mean, I know that I'm hoping that your brains have been spinning, that you've been thinking about a lot of things, and because it may feel overwhelming and you've got other things to do immediately following this call, what are 2 things that you're going to review or revise? So keep that in mind. I hope it makes it a little bit more manageable. Callie, Aaron, I know we're at the end. Members feel this is another point about engagement. Members feel a lack of connection, while overall retention metrics remain strong, with the majority of members feeling satisfied with their membership. However, far fewer feel a connection. And I bring this up again because onboarding can lead to engagement. And if we want our membership renewal rates to stay strong, and we want our associations to stay strong, then we need to increase that engagement, which means we need to have a strong onboarding program. All right, so Callie and Aaron, I know I'm just right at the end. I tried to get as many questions as I could during, so I am going to turn it back to you guys.
Thanks, Scott. Gosh, that hour flew by. So many great tips. Thank you so much. I know we couldn't get to everyone's questions. You all had so many great questions. If you have more questions, Scott has shared his contact information here, so please jot that down. But again, I know a lot of people have asked. We will be sending a recording of the presentation along with these slides following the webinar, so be on the lookout for that in the next day or two. And we'll also be sending you a certificate of attendance for your CAE credit. Scott, thank you so much. That was fabulous, very helpful.
It was
Now,
my
that
pleasure. I know,
concludes.
Callie, I know you want to switch it over to Aaron, but seriously, I just want to reiterate, if you guys do have questions that I didn't get to, I'm sort of scrolling through here. Email me, please email me, and I'll be happy to answer them because I want you guys to feel like you got as much out of this as you could.
Perfect. And that concludes the educational portion of the webinar, but I do now want to turn it over to Aaron Hall, CAE and MemberClicks's product marketing manager, who will share a few solutions that can help associations and chambers with some of the onboarding initiatives that we just discussed. So Aaron, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Callie. Scott, thank you for leading today's topic. That was, holy smokes, just so much good material. And just judging from what we're seeing in the chat, just go ahead and start like optimizing your email box, because I think you're going to get a lot of questions, and it looks like there's a lot of commitments as well from the folks on the call today to really, try some new things and get their membership marketing and onboarding to an even better place. So thank you so much, and thanks to all the attendees that contributed materials today and such thoughtful things in the chat box. The last few months, guys, they've certainly been challenging for associations and chambers. All of you have just incredibly impactful and vital jobs. And that's made even more so recently by factors way outside of our control, right? And I just want you all to know, I speak for all of us at MemberClicks when I say how grateful we are for you. There is truly no collective group that works harder toward carrying out critical missions than you, the association and chamber professional. So especially now, we've heard that many of our clients, maybe like you, are challenged to do a lot more with less. Now, thankfully, we're hearing that MemberClicks is helping meet that challenge in some really meaningful ways. So this might sound familiar to you. In a recent market study, our clients shared their top 3 priorities, and those are retaining members and revenue from both dues and other sources like events, increasing membership engagement, including continuing education, and enabling staff to be more productive, especially currently since we are all facing some staff reduction. So if these challenges sound familiar, the next 5 minutes or so should be really valuable for you, just because I'd like to provide a brief overview on how the MemberClicks integrated platform of solutions is helping thousands of associations and chambers with retaining and even increasing revenue, engaging members, and improving staff productivity. So it was brought up a lot today that the key to lasting membership loyalty is getting members off on the right foot from day one, from that very first touch point. Maybe it's an email or a phone call, but getting them off on the right foot from day one is so important. Making them feel plugged in, appreciated, and like they're an authentic part of your organization's fabric and story. So with MemberClicks, there are opportunities to organize and automate much of the administrative burden that comes with establishing those relationships so that your staff can use these skills to focus on nurturing and strengthening those relationships. And when it comes to those goals, we at MemberClicks, we have 2 core membership management solutions that tackle those things very seamlessly. So first, Oasis is our association management software aimed to help professional and hybrid associations grow membership, generate non-dues revenue from events, and manage mission-critical tasks all in one web-based solution that saves time and makes your association look its best. Now, on the other hand, we have Atlas, which is our membership management software aimed at helping trade associations and chambers of commerce foster complex relationships, manage finances and events, generate web content, and all other critical tasks to grow revenue, increase productivity, and reduce costs. So both association management software solutions from MemberClicks do help automate traditionally manual processes, which was a theme as well today. We like to reduce those manual processes tied to things that are vitally important, such as member onboarding and engagement. So Think dues payment processing, welcome emails, communities, members-only website access, event registration and confirmation, and also membership directly listings. Plus, you can gain insights you need to know that your efforts are headed in the right direction. You'll save time, you'll have more actionable data, all while giving your prospects that kind of boutique white glove experience, right? That's going to make them think of you fondly and make them a lifelong member. Now, beyond our AMS solutions, Oasis and Atlas, we also have a powerful portfolio of strategic solutions. And those are built to boost the credibility of your organization and help with the success of your member community. First up, we have our MC LMS. That's our very approachable, affordable learning management software. Now, this integrated solution is perfect for generating non-dues revenue through virtual content and events, very hot right now, and increasing member engagement and value by driving education and orientation videos, for example. You can virtualize your annual conference, host online education, facilitate a certification program, or create customized onboarding experiences for new members or perhaps board leaders or committee leaders in your organization. And that's all within our integrated LMS. Now, ePly is our event management software. And even though we're all waiting to see the in-person event space bounce back, ePly is actually perfect for virtual event registration as well, as it does have a Zoom integration that seamlessly tracks attendance. So ePly can do that heavy lifting for you so you can focus on planning your event and your guests can focus on the experience. Finally, MemberClicks also has a job board that connects with both of our AMS solutions. So one of the best ways to generate non-dues revenue and set your organization apart is by equipping your members with a resource to find relevant jobs for the next step in their career. And that could be tomorrow, or that can be a year from now. But that's an incredibly important piece of what you can offer your members. So with MC Job Board, you can do all of that while generating a pretty hefty amount of non-dues revenue for your organization. So no matter what your organizational goals are now or in the future, we really have you covered, from addressing specific needs with our strategic solutions to streamlining processes and tasks with one of our core AMS products, Oasis or Atlas. And for those of you in attendance today, if you're interested in exploring more about how Oasis or Atlas can save you time and money while also influencing membership success and growth, we're extending a special offer. And if you purchase one of our AMS solutions by the end of July, we're actually going to cover and completely waive the setup fee for you. And that's a $3,000 value. So pretty great deal there. After today's webinar, you'll receive a survey to choose what you'd like to see in future webinars. These webinars are successful because of you, and we want to present you with what you'd like to hear. So you'll also have the opportunity to tell us if you'd like to hear more about any of the solutions that I've talked about today. That's it, guys. I appreciate you all so much. I'm going to pass this back off to Callie for some closing remarks. Thank you for coming today. Please take care of yourselves, and we look forward to talking soon.
Thanks, Erin. And thanks so much again, everyone, for joining us today. Erin briefly mentioned this, but when you exit the webinar, a quick 8-question survey will pop up. We'd really appreciate your thoughts on today's webinar and how we can improve future events like it. We want them to be as useful to you as possible. Plus, by completing that survey, you will be entered to win a $100 Amazon gift card. So just 2 minutes of your time for potentially $100. Not too bad. We'll notify the winner early next week. All right, that said, thank you again for joining us. Scott, thank you so much. I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of the day.